Real ones with me, I know we gon' beat the odds. Yup. Counterfeit. Guess it from the thought of it. People fake. Think they need to start a kid. Tryna be real. This right here to start a kid.
Huge thank you to today's sponsor, Giant Snacks. Giants is a small family-owned business that specializes in premium flavor and giant snack sizes.
From sunflower seeds and pistachios, pumpkin seeds and cashews, Giants has all the great snacks you need.
Don't forget some of the great flavors that they offer, from dill pickle to sweet Thai chili.
Or whatever flavor you're craving.
Check out the newest flavor that just arrived in stores.
Big Easy cashews and Big Easy sunflower seeds.
Available now online or in a store near you. Huge thank you to Giant Snacks for sponsoring this podcast.
Now let's get back to the podcast.
Brushmark Signs is a family-owned and operated business out of Detroit Lakes, Minnesota.
They are a one-stop shop for visual marketing.
Their designers can create logos, banners, indoor and outdoor signs,
digital message boards, decals, and apparel,
as well as promotional items, window tinting, and more, and they ship nationwide.
They are a full-service sign company from start to finish.
Their install team is experienced, knowledgeable, and dependable, so if you're interested,
give them a call at
218-847-3599
or visit brushmarksigns.com.
Thank you guys for sponsoring this podcast.
Now let's get back to the podcast.
So I guess my first question is, what is smile like you mean it? What's behind that?
So one of our previous guests, Matthew Wernig, he's 50 Dates, 50 States. Have you ever heard of him? But he reposted, he had gotten some hats from those guys. So I looked into it. I was like, if Matthew's posting these guys, bottom right. I was like, if Matthew's posting these guys, then it must be something good, something interesting. So I looked at it, and it's basically just a guy who started a brand that wants to spread positivity and have a good positive movement on everybody else. And so I reached out and I was like, hey, if you want to give us some hats, we'll promote them on the pod. So that's basically how that happened. And now they're here.
Cool. Nice hats for show. I like them.
Thank you to Giant Snacks and Brushmark Signs, as well as Smile Like You Mean It Apparel for sponsoring this episode. Check out these hats that they sent over. Here, toss me one of them, Aiden. You got this tan one. They got plenty of options. That's more for the ladies. The denim. Otherwise, we got some other different colors and stuff. But if you guys are interested in supporting this positive message, Smile Like You Mean It, go check it out. Top link in our bio. Use code BEYOND, all caps, and you'll get 10% off your order. So if you guys want to rep a positive brand, go ahead and check them out. Welcome back to the Beyond the Spotlight podcast, hosted by myself. My name is Jack.
And I'm Aiden.
And today we're here with Dan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So I got an intro up for you here. Today we're joined by a DJ who's been setting the vibe across Fargo and beyond. Whether it's hyping up NDSU tailgates, throwing down at clubs and weddings, or even spinning tracks in Australia, he's doing it all. He's not just a performer, but a creator, making mashups and edits that DJs play worldwide at festivals, clubs, and events. And on top of all that, he's a world traveler, having visited 17 countries and always chasing new experiences. Let's give a big welcome to DJ Oreo.
Hey, thanks for having me, boys.
Absolutely. How's it going today, man?
Super good. I got a gig tonight and then another gig up at UND tomorrow. So just rocking fun beats in the community is always super grateful to be a part of that.
What's your gig tonight?
I'm doing District 64, so quick intro. My spring plans are District 64 on Fridays. I got a cool partnership with their ownership there where I'm going to start bringing in guest DJs. And then Saturdays, I'm kind of back at Cowboy Jack's, which was where I kind of got started downtown Fargo about 3 years ago and built a lot of my fan base through that. And kind of going back to that, but also one big way, I guess, has set me apart from other DJs is being able to DJ at like several different establishments where like a lot of establishments, bars, clubs, they want to lock you up and keep you at one specific spot. And I guess I've broken away enough that I've created my own value that somebody's willing to pay me more on Friday and somebody's willing to pay me more on Saturday. And so I kind of was able to use that in negotiation to kind of now create more opportunities for other people in the same step.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
So you kind of just did it there, but for like your background, can you give a little elevator pitch of where you're from and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Stillwater, Minnesota. I played basketball growing up. I had a lot of like close friends where I just would throw, little occasional parties. And I was the guy that was just always on aux. I'd be like
Yep.
obsessively like maybe away from the party thinking about, all right, like what song is going to elevate this party? And that kind of really grew. And I started to realize more and more once I got to college is that like I actually have a really God-given gift of just knowing, being able to read a crowd and just being able to understand what people want. You know, you play one song, you're like, okay, that means they're definitely going to like this sort of genre. So you can kind of dive into that. And that really just established my strong base of like, I already knew the music. It's all about now like mixing and then somehow also kind of becoming a creator with that. So kind of my creation, that mind started when I listened to the Big Booty mixes.
Oh yeah.
If you've ever heard of those
Yep.
by two friends. So it's like an hour-long mashup mix. And that was kind of my inspiration to like, all right, these were so cool. They inspired me and I can do that in my own sort of like way or fashion by also like incorporating, you know, old songs into newer style beats electronically, or even just like a hip hop beat, like an old school hip hop song over a new school hip hop beat. So, I even have like a YouTube channel myself that I've kind of like introed and shown people online, like how I do it myself, and try to like bridge that gap to the community of like, anybody can be a creator, which has definitely been a huge part of my journey, is just like building within the community and meeting a bunch of people. They've really been pushing me recently of all the people that have been surrounding me. But to keep going, sorry, I kind of got a little bit off track.
No, that's okay.
But truly, I just kind of like got into it. I bought a DJ board and then I just kept going, and I just like spent time in my bedroom, and then I started approaching myself to businesses. So I started at like Pounds downtown Fargo. So that was actually my very first start in college. And now it's just a restaurant, but it used to be a really cool nightclub on Friday and Saturday nights back in like 2020 before
Sure.
COVID. And then when COVID happened, I DJ'd for about 6 months downtown. I was making edits online, posted my like mashup mixes and stuff. I kind of like made my own Oreo mixes, which were kind of like my smaller version of the Big Booty mixes, but definitely was a start. Started building kind of like fans online that way too. And obviously COVID kind of hit and slapped me and everybody in the DJ community kind of in the face, especially like the whole entertainment industry. So, you know, I kind of took a step back. I was in my last year of college. I graduated, and then I started working full time before I even like graduated college as a manager at Sam's Club. So I just kind of knew that nothing's ever guaranteed especially in the entertainment industry, but just in life in general. So make the most out of every opportunity that I ever have. So I kind of knew that mindset. And
So, but back before, when you went to high school, did you learn that you had this talent, or at what point in your life, like, where did you go to high school? Did you plan on going to college? Did you have a job, or did you go right to DJing?
Yeah.
Obviously you said Sam's Club, but
yeah, sorry, I probably skipped around a little bit.
No, that's
but,
okay.
High school, Stillwater, Minnesota, and like that was kind of
Yep.
like the party scene. And then I went to NDSU, and I kind of like kept growing in like, I just knew that I had that talent, but I never really dove into buying a DJ board. But when I turned 19, so like after my first year of full college, I bought a DJ board, and just, I had a house with 4 other housemates, but they all left for the summer. They went back home to like the Twin Cities, and I had the house to myself. So you would find me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you know, every single day of the week, just like banging music, learning how to DJ, you know, taking advantage of the space. And I guess like from that point forward, I also made it a huge goal to buy my own house, because I knew that like anytime I lived in an apartment or, you know, a dorm, like I'm just going to cause way too many problems, because I love music. And obviously not everybody around you in terms of your neighbors are going to love that banging music. So, yeah, 19. And then I just kind of grew from there in terms of going and, you know, approaching businesses, obviously spending a ton of time in my bedroom, learning how to DJ, create mixes, kind of like create mashups.
How did you learn how to DJ? Like, did you learn off of like YouTube, or just through just keep trying? Or
It's definitely a mix of both. Like, I guess when I first opened it up, I was just like, I need to figure out what each individual knob does.
yeah.
But then once you like start to learn what you have, you can really grow on YouTube. I mean, there's so many resources available nowadays, even more so like right now at this current moment, like ChatGPT. Once I started like really getting comfortable with it, like I can ask it any single question, and it's like going to give me a really, really solid answer in terms of, even like production. I've been starting to dive more and more into like producing my own sounds, and you can just be like, all right, what is the best reverb for Taylor Swift? Because obviously Taylor Swift mashups rock the club. But a lot of her songs are super slow, and how can I turn that into a clubbier style song? And so I've created, not sure if you guys like dug super far into my SoundCloud, but I created a Taylor Swift EDM mix. So I've done
crazy.
like some mashup mixes, just like, with all different genres, but I was like, I don't know, there's definitely a market for just like Taylor Swift EDM heads. And
so you find that that's gotten the club bumping before, basically, like at these Fargo bars.
Yeah, like I have a "You Belong With Me" edits that just like rocks the club every single time, and then it's done so well that I started making maybe a few different versions of that same acapella, because that even like Mr. Brightside, that is such an iconic song that I've like created probably 3 to 4 different edits for different occasions, that can like hype it up for a wedding, but has a couple different acapellas in it, like UCLA by R.L. Grime. That I put that over the top of the beat, and then I bring it back into Mr. Brightside, and it's just like kind of like being able to trigger lots of different crowds in that one moment. It's just such a cool feeling knowing that like that idea, I created that, even if it's like I didn't create either of those songs, but I created kind of like a cool edited version of it that really rocks dance floors everywhere. So like you kind of mentioned in the intro, like I do get to play my edits all over the world, but I release all of my edits on free download, just because mashups aren't really something that you're allowed to sell.
Right.
But you can distribute it as, like a free gift to people. So, unofficial remixes, bootlegs, stuff like that. You can just kind of like give it to people. And so that's what I wanted to do, is like, I know it rocks the club. I don't want to just like keep it for myself in Fargo, North Dakota. I mean, it's really
you can't make money off of it, but maybe if some other bigger DJ uses it, it can get your name out there
100%.
Potentially. So it actually does help you. Do you remember what your first gig was?
Yeah, for sure. So it was Pounds. That was my very
Sorry,
first
you
gig.
just mentioned that.
No
My
worries
bad.
at all. It was such a cool experience though, because like obviously I was in the middle of college. All my college friends came out. But obviously like I think that break of COVID helped me a lot as a person and kind of like my mentality as a DJ, because I was definitely like more like, oh, I love partying and throwing great shows for my friends. But then I had to realize like, all right, how do I like actually build fans? And building fans, even though I wanted my friends to always be like my biggest fans, it was just never going to be the reality. As frustrated as maybe it made me, of like, why aren't like my best friends supporting me when like random people are? But that's just kind of like the reality of life, is like, you just got to build fans on your own. And that's like, those are going to be like the most loyal people to you moving forward, is that like you naturally build them rather than just like forcing your friends to like, hey, listen to my stuff, please, please, please. It definitely can like be annoying to almost them. So I'm really grateful that I like had that setback of like, okay, I had to face real life and realize that like, okay, DJing for a living would be an absolute dream. How do I make it happen? So I saved up for more and more equipment so I could start throwing like personal shows, like start doing weddings. Getting into the wedding industry was definitely like a big goal. And I had just a couple gigs lined up that through friends and stuff once COVID was kind of coming to a halt. And I was able to just like hit the ground running. I was working full time, like I mentioned, as a manager, but I was able to like quit and take a few months off of that and really focus on the few weddings that I had booked. And then I just like really dialed in on marketing those. And then that turned into, my first ever school dance, which it was like their first school dance too, within like 2 years, because they hadn't been able to like throw a party together.
So they were stoked, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. It was one of the coolest crowds to this day that I've ever DJ'd for, because it was like almost like 1,000 kids at a school in Wisconsin, Hudson High School. And like the video from that event, I felt like really showed people that like I could turn a crowd up because like they were starting mosh pits and like one of my first, that was probably like my 4th or 5th gig back when COVID was kind of over. So it just kind of was all about like putting myself in the right place in the right time, marketing it efficiently, and then just every single gig taking so much pride into what I do and like really preparing like the best set for whoever's in front of me. And every wedding, every club, every school dance is a little bit different. But yeah, just put it in that time.
So you mentioned earlier mashups, how you create your own mashups. And this is just something that I was thinking of while you're talking about it. How long does that take?
It's definitely a little bit of a process. So once I got my DJ board in front of me and I have, a bunch of songs, you can start looking at BPM and the key of the song and like start being able to look at what would make sense together. But then even sometimes if it's like, okay, it lines up, does the vibe of the two songs actually make any sense too? So, being able to kind of like incorporate all those and then start to like get the idea, and then you can play the idea on your DJ board. But when you actually like, if you record that and play it live, it's going to sound a lot worse because you like just like recorded it. But if you can produce it in a DJ program or like in a production program like Ableton, I use Logic Pro. So I, make the mashup, I guess, live, and then I will actually produce it in a format that like just maximizes the quality of the mashup, and then I can distribute it to people around the world. And that's kind of how I got that gig. You might have seen my recent trip to Australia, but I built those connections by distributing my music, and they play my edits out in Australia, and I was like, yo, I'm coming through, like, can you get me a gig? And just building that connection of like me sharing music to them was able to get me opportunities in Australia that moving forward, if I want to go back, they definitely are like willing to hopefully have me back because it went really well. And just really cool building those connections across the world.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Talk to us about like what an average night in downtown Fargo looks like with you DJing.
Yeah. Every night can be a little bit different because, I have built sort of a fan base that they've seen me like 20, 30 times. So knowing that, I always try to bring something different. And I also, in the same mindset, there's going to be people in that crowd that haven't ever seen me before. So being able to balance like, okay, how crazy do I go in terms of like just out there, wild, crazy remixes, edits, dubstep. The average listener that goes up to the club probably is like, I don't even really know what dubstep is. Like maybe I heard Skrillex in like 2014, but
sure.
I try to bring new for everybody. And I just try to incorporate who's in front of me, and every night can be different. So like District 64 recently has been a lot of college kids, but then also like some people that have seen me 30 times. So I try to like maybe rock for them, the people that have really seen me and supported me a bunch, but also make sure like I'm representing the people and like keeping people there as long as possible is kind of the goal. Obviously spending money, like the more people spend money at the bar, the more the bar makes, the more they want to pay me. So I try to be like encouraging of
making go get some drinks.
Making good decisions too at the end of the night. But at the end of the night, I always say like, hey, make sure you have like a safe and sober ride home. But like in the moment, if it's 12 o'clock, like we often do like a bar pour at Cowboy Jack's. So that's like just free bar pour where like all the bartenders get up on the bar and pour booze into everybody's mouth.
Sure.
Just like cool ways to like, I don't know, create a really fun environment that I think Fargo and North Dakota maybe sometimes misses out on from a lot of bigger markets. So what I've just been trying to do is like I've been to probably 4 of the top like 6 festivals in the world. So like Tomorrowland, EDC, and I just try to incorporate, those are the biggest, coolest productions in the world. How can I like bring that in a, you know, smaller but really effective way in Fargo. So each of my gigs, you know, you just don't really see this with a lot of DJs. Is like I bring extra subwoofers, I bring spark machines, I bring lasers, I bring fog. So I just bring a whole bunch of different elements that, you know, a lot of people just don't know, like, hey, like it's extra money. Why would we spend money on that? But like, I know how much value it can really add when you add like a really cool light show. When you see lasers for the first time, it's definitely like a super cool environment. And I want to bring that here as much as I can.
Have you ever had anything, whether it's like good or bad, that really stood out to you? Maybe some drunk dude puking or a crazy fight or something like that happening?
Oh man. Yeah. There's so many things that happen through the course of a night.
Even just one night.
You know, I've had people like sneak back in the booth, and like as soon as I looked away, I had this girl like jump over. So I went to like go hug somebody, and I was looking away, and she hopped over the DJ booth and like pretended like she was DJing.
Touching your stuff and all that?
I think she was more just like, you know, trying to look like she was doing it. I don't think the intentions were the worst, but like as soon as I look away, she was just waiting for that opportunity to hop up there. There's definitely been so many, you know, there's fights that kind of happen, but I try to do my best. Like there's been like literally like people like about to fight on the dance floor, and I cut the music and I say like, hey, like that's not what we're here for. Like, please, like, leave the premise and, you know, treat each other with respect. You know, like we're all just here to escape whatever's going on in our personal lives, because you never know what the person next to you is going through. And like recently there's been a lot of like political hate towards and animosity towards, like, you know, if you're on the left and, you know, if you're on the right, like it just, everybody's throwing shade at one another, that like I'm trying to remove that and just create a atmosphere
for everybody
that like you don't care what the person next to you like necessarily like voted for. You just like, you all treat each other with respect.
Let's just listen to music and have fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Like there's so much more to life than just that. So
have you ever had anybody like spill beer or water or throw in water and get on your equipment?
2 months ago I had a drink spilled on my DJ board, so I had to get a brand new DJ board. So it's definitely regular.
What did that cost you? If you don't mind,
$500. The DJ board's $1,000, but I got like 500 covered with insurance. So
really,
I do have insurance, but yeah, you have to kind of pay like a deductible. So
sure.
But I've had, you know, plenty of drinks spilled. I've had drinks thrown directly like at me, and then like hit me, and then it dropped on my computer.
Dang,
that was St. Patty's Day like 2 years ago. That is like the craziest day when you guys turn 21. St. Patty's Day in Fargo is literally
nuts.
It's just that people turn into animals. They truly like, they start drinking at like 1 p.m. and they stay out all night. So I started DJing. Like it's busy in Cowboy Jack's at 1, and then I kind of like started playing music at 2, and no water breaks. Well, I mean, I drink a little bit of water, but like no food, no bathroom breaks for 12 straight hours. I DJ'd from 2 p.m. to 2 in the morning.
Wow.
And up next year, like this coming month, I'm going to have a couple of guest DJs so I can actually take a break this time around. But yeah. I had a drink directly spill on top, but luckily I always have one of those like keyboard covers, so that helps a little bit. But it's a dangerous environment, I guess, for, you know, equipment. It's not like an actual dangerous environment, but just like if you have a lot of expensive equipment, yeah, you got to be careful and I always try to just remove myself as far as I can from people with their drinks, because they like to shake and throw things. And
Do you want to go through some like themes that you like shoot for, whether you're gonna be at a wedding or whether you're gonna be at a school dance or at the bar? Like what themes do you shoot for, and what do you try and drive the crowd towards, whether that's like a total rave or just kind of like slow country or something like that?
I guess I can start with like weddings. So a lot of people early on would book me because I was just charging super cheap to do a wedding. Because I knew that like getting the most amount of gigs possible early on was just like probably the best interest for me because I knew I provided a ton of value. So early on, people were booking me just for like cheap costs. So, it could be anything from like a completely country wedding to, hip hop, 2000s pop, hip hop, those kind of like those 2000s bangers. Or, like a relatively like crowd that likes new hip hop. It really like weddings can fluctuate a bunch, but recently a lot of people are booking me as DJ Oreo. So they've seen my gigs at Cowboy Jack's District and say like, okay, like we like that EDM vibe, but he can also rock, the classics early on for like my mom, my grandpa,
Sure.
And so I can get those people involved early, and that's always the goal is like it's 7, 8 o'clock. Like, let's just get everybody on the dance floor, get some slow songs, get, ABBA, Dancing Queen,
Hell
Whitney
yeah.
Houston. So I just get everybody involved early, and then as the night progresses, and like I've already danced people for an hour to 2 hours, it's like, okay, that's kind of, you're getting to a point of like, can I get something new and fresh once I've been dancing already for an hour to 2 hours? So that's where I kind of come in and like 10 o'clock, we are just getting started. And like by the time midnight, you're just like gassed in terms of how much you've been dancing all night. It's kind of my goal with weddings. And then clubs can be a little bit different of just like, all right, like I mentioned, like people have seen me 30 times. So I have really taken pride in like getting to know what they like, or like I'll know like, okay, this specific group of people that all come together, they really like dubstep, rhythm. Like if they're there at 10:45, like I'll go really hard for a 10:45 crowd just because I know those people are there and that's what they want. So I just try to give the people what they want, truly. And but there's also times where I just have to be super inclusive and get as many people going at the same, like especially on a slow night, it's a bit more difficult because, like if one group leaves, then your dance floor looks way emptier. But like if it's super busy, like a new group can come in any second. But just trying to like, I guess, build the community as much as I can and get everybody included.
Is your sleep schedule just cooked then?
Yeah, it's definitely weird, but like I'm super grateful, I guess, for my life and doing what I do. So I just push it down and worry about it less. Like I kind of mentioned to you guys off camera, but I have a sauna, and that's really like helped my whole sleep schedule, my health, really just being able to, if I'm like up at 5 a.m, that thing will just like, if I do it for like 30 minutes, it'll knock me out and I'll like start to like get back into some sort of regular, sleep schedule.
So you mentioned you worked at Sam's Club for a bit. Are you still there now, or is this your full-time deal?
This is my full-time gig. So I've actually been full-time with this about 3 years now. I left Sam's Club in July of 2021. And then I kind of like took the first couple months of, me being away from them just to like really focus on marketing. And then I had a few weddings lined up. So I had like a little bit of income lined up too, while I had a good amount saved. And then about 3 months prior to me quitting Sam's Club too, I had bought this house. So I knew that if I had like extra bedrooms, I could rent those out. So I was just kind of trying to be like super crafty in like how I made my money when I was starting DJing and really going for it. So I had a couple different travel nurses stay in those extra bedrooms, and, like that helped me keep going. And then also I worked part-time at the juvenile center in Moorhead. So I was in like the treatment facility, just kind of like, overlooking the juvenile center, but also trying to work with them and like show them, because a lot of them are like very driven towards like hip hop, rapping.
Yeah.
And so like I literally kind of created a life for myself through music, and I was showing them like, hey, you can make money doing stuff like this, and just try to show that impact. So I did that for about 7-8 months. And then I was just starting to get super busy with like Cowboy Jack's was booking me every single weekend. And then I had wedding season coming up where I've been doing about over 20 weddings each summer and kind of like fall, spring. So not too much in the wintertime for weddings, but I'll typically get like 1 or 2. But so yeah, since July 2021, I left Sam's Club, and then I did part-time and like renting out rooms, just kind of like finding ways to get income. But I've been full-time for 3 years now.
How
doing
far out
DJing.
are you booked? Or is it like with bars and stuff, are they pretty week by week? Obviously weddings, I'm sure you're booked out.
For like clubs, it's like season by season. It's like, all right, let's get the spring locked in. Okay, summer, like we know you're booked for a lot of weddings. Well, when the time comes, we can maybe like fit in a couple dates. But I've kind of built connections with like every single big bar or club in the area. So District is like one of the main clubs that's open every single weekend. Cowboy Jacks, they've been kind of just revolved around me because I provide all the equipment. So in the summertime when I'm doing weddings, they've just kind of decided not to do entertainment most of the time unless I'm available or they want me. Or I've been doing Fort Knox, which is like they have a huge patio, which is perfect for summertime. So they have a huge space where I just bring a whole production and basically throw a cool little outdoor show there. So I'll probably do that this summer too. But like, thankfully I have all those different connections and I can kind of fit in and I guess almost go like I can reach out and make it work. At this point, that's kind of what's I've been doing. But yeah, this summer I'm going to probably have 30 weddings. So I'm going to be
Dang.
So is that
focused
your
on
like busiest time of the year then is the summer?
And that's where I make most of my money. I mean, like I can survive, I guess, if I just did club stuff, but weddings is where I can like really cater, obviously, to the couple, throw them the best party. It's like a super long day a lot of the time where, you know, I'm getting there 2 to 3 hours before the ceremony, so like around noon, and I don't really get out of there till like maybe like 1, 2 a.m. So, you know, at least like a 14-hour day a lot of the time. Plus that doesn't even include like driving. Like I'll typically, you know, I definitely have a lot of weddings that are in like central northern Minnesota that are 2-3 hours away. So plus another like 6 hours of driving on top of that. So it can be a long day, but it's like a lot of, you know, just being like committed to what the couple is looking for in their vision, and you know, just making not only it's already like the best day for them, so I try to make it the best night ever and make sure everybody's on that dance floor till the very last minute. And hopefully like they're asking for one more song and the venue's telling me no, that you can't go anymore. That's always kind of like the
I
goal.
bet that is a good feeling when you have a couple, and I'm assuming this is how it works. I'm assuming they talk to you and say, hey, this is kind of what we want for our wedding, and we want to make it great. And I'm sure there's a lot of stress within them because they're planning a wedding. But then at the end of the day, the wedding's done, and you can look back and say, dang, that was a good, successful like run.
Huge thank you to today's sponsor, Giant Snacks. Giants is a small family-owned business that specializes in premium flavor and giant snack sizes.
From sunflower seeds and pistachios, pumpkin seeds and cashews, Giants has all the great snacks you need.
Don't forget some of the great flavors that they offer, from dill pickle to sweet Thai chili.
Or whatever flavor you're craving.
Check out the newest flavor that just arrived in stores.
Big Easy cashews and Big Easy sunflower seeds.
Available now online or in a store near you. Huge thank you to Giant Snacks for sponsoring this podcast.
Now let's get back to the podcast.
For sure. No, there's can be a lot of stress ahead of time, just with like, it's their day, you know? So I try to like be the fun person of the day, because there's going to be like wedding planners, there's going to be photographers that are just like, they're stressed out because like they know that the bride paid this much money to have like the best photos, to have, you know, the best wedding day, to have the best food. So I see that stress, but I try to be like the one vendor that is just like, all right, I know how much we've put into and details we put into this, but like, we got this. We're just going to throw a banging party. And then like all that stress of like getting married, you know, like crying and like speeches and all that kind of stuff. Like even like, you know, the best man, you know, they're nervous about giving their best man speech. Like there's just a lot of anxiety within a wedding day. And I'm just the person to kind of like say like, all right, break it even, like break loose, like, you know, break a leg on the dance floor and like, let's get this party going. But obviously a ton of details prior give me the ability to like push that stress away, because, you know, we've done all the preparation in terms of what they want.
Right.
But typically, like I mentioned, people are booking me for Oreo now, as DJ Oreo, and they've seen me and they're like, we trust you. We see the way you work a crowd and like the way you mix, that we just trust you. Here's like maybe our favorite artists, or here's a Spotify playlist that kind of lets you get to know what we like. But at the end of the day, like, somebody gives you a crappy request, like, it's on you to kind of feed into the crowd of like, all right, do I trust, every request that comes my way? Probably not. But I just try to like really tap into what the crowd wants in the moment.
I've been that guy that's like, because all my siblings have gotten married, well, all except for one. 4 of my siblings have been married. So I'm sure I was that kid that ran up to the DJ and was like, yo, play Watch Me Whip. It's like, dude, like, I'm not playing that, And I'm like, why isn't this guy playing my song? I requested it 20 minutes ago. But no, that makes sense. Have you ever had one where you're just like, you can't play it and they just keep coming at you and get mad for not playing or complaining or anything like that?
Yeah, there's one in particular where like there's so many requests out there. Like, you've probably seen like the Bad Bunny on top of like they put it on their phone. And they're like, play Bad Bunny, or like Cupid Shuffle. And I try to like incorporate and listen to it, but like obviously I also have a do not playlist for my couples. So if they're like,
oh sure, we
don't want line dances, I'm like, all right, like I respectfully say, hey yo, like the couple says they don't want the cha-cha slide. I know I know you like, a song that you can like be told how to dance, but that's kind of
right.
They were requesting not. So I move on from that. But one guy in particular was telling me to play like a Pearl Jam set from like 1970s. And he was like basically telling me like play like a mixtape, like a live recording of a band from like the 1970s. And I was like, I can't do that. And he got really angry that like he had to be held back from
really?
Yeah. I was like,
wow.
Hey, somebody come get this guy who's way too drunk from like, he was like 70, 80 years old trying to live his glory days. But
okay, let's bounce way back. How'd you get the name DJ Oreo?
Yeah, for sure. So you guys have seen probably my cat Leo here. My previous cat, his name was Oreo. So he was a legend in my college house, and we kind of all came together of like, okay, like you should probably base it off this like legend of a cat at my college house. And he was there for like all the early points of the journey. But he passed away about 1.5 years ago. So,
rest in peace, Oreo.
Rest in peace, Oreo. So now we're rocking the name full force for him and just kind of living it on.
That's awesome.
It is pretty catchy. I feel like DJ Oreo, like people will know that that's you. There's no one else that's.
And you're repping the black and white jersey like the Oreo.
Yeah. I'm an Oreo.
Okay, tell us about your NDSU collabs, because you're at their tailgates, or correct me if I'm wrong, but men's and women's basketball games.
Yeah.
How did that all happen?
So I guess I just been like growing in the community enough to create demand for myself. Like, I think I probably reached out a couple years ago, and I just knew that like, all right, they have to figure it out on their own terms of like entertainment, like knowing what they need of like, okay, maybe like student demand goes down a little bit at your tailgates and your women's and men's basketball games. Like, what's a good way to fix that? And I've tried to like reach out and say like, hey, I'm an option. I will do my absolute best and like give it my all. And I think it took them probably a little bit of time to like come around to the idea of a DJ, but they eventually did. I think it was a big push from like their student government to get me incorporated with their tailgates. So that's kind of where it first started. Is like, dude, we have to hire DJ Oreo for our tailgates. And that was kind of like the student president and like vice president were really pushing heavy for me. They've seen me at Cowboy Jacks. And so that kind of like solidified me the first opportunity. And I just kind of, I gave it my all. Like I tried to promote it super heavy. And then I brought like, you know, my big production of like Spark Machines. You guys mentioned that you saw me, right?
I saw you at a tailgate. Yeah. Yep. This year.
Cool. Yeah. How'd you like it?
I liked it. I didn't get to stick around for too long, but I actually had my first fan, you could say, meetup thing. Like this dude was like, hey, you're from Beyond the Spotlight. And we were like in your pit area there, and we like took a photo. It was pretty cool.
Heck yeah.
So that's a memory from DJ Oreo I'll never forget.
Heck yeah. No, I mean, it's all about building community and like making friends that you'd maybe just never encounter in like the real world. but there's so many different walks of life of people that like come to my shows and come support. We all just like love to jam out and dance and kind of experience that like sort of like rave culture. But in sort of like a North Dakota sense, I'm playing like maybe a lot of rock country remixes. That's, maybe not super common when you go to like a big show in the Twin Cities or LA, Miami. It's definitely a different vibe up here, but like I'm catering to the people and trying to include everybody. So, I've been super grateful. And so once I kind of solidified and knocked that opportunity at the tailgates out of the park, I had, one of the ADs, athletic directors, come up to me and say like, yo, what about basketball games? Do you think that would be a good fit? And I was like, heck yeah. I kind of had a trip planned from, like December to like late January, but I took about, over half the games. And then there's also another DJ in town, One Pretty Ricky, who rocked kind of like the other half of the games while I was gone. So, and we've been kind of in collaboration. He's even worked with NDSU a few times before too. So,
Sure.
And so he's a great resource to me. Like, it's been really awesome in this community because it's not like this in every community around the world of like, like people that you're competing against, but also supporting each other. So, big shout out to Ricky. He's been like, obviously my direct competition, but in a lot of ways, like such a good mentor and friend. So, it can also be like the sense of, building each other up, like iron sharpens iron when you like go against each other. So it's been a lot of that, and people around me, not only being my competition, but like helping build me up in the process.
So other than Ricky, is there any other competition in the area? Would you say that you have a lot of competition?
Every market is a little bit different, but a lot of people move from Fargo as soon as like maybe they achieve some sort of like they start growing their brand here, but they just realize it's not that big. So a lot of people move to like, the Twin Cities or bigger markets. And I always kind of thought that way too when I was in college. I definitely was looking for something bigger, but I realized there like is such a good opportunity here because, there's plenty of people. There's plenty of people that are looking to celebrate for different occasions. So like there's a pretty good wedding industry that like I inserted myself into, but there was plenty of competition within the wedding industry already. In terms of the club atmosphere, not a ton. And like I mentioned, like a lot of them tend to go to the Twin Cities. So a lot of those people that were good fits left. Speaking of like one of my best friends, his name's DJ Ben Cavalier. He was here from like I think he left in like 2022, and he was here like he grew up here. But prior to that, he was like a really good DJ, but obviously like he grew up here, and sometimes taking that step in a new place really can help grow your career. So and it's really like paid off for him tenfold. But like for me, I guess I'm in the opposite situation where like I grew up in Stillwater and I moved here, and that was kind of me bridging out of my previous market and kind of growing and finding my new market here, even though it's a little bit smaller. But I've really been able to just like kind of like stake who I am, and people just book me for who I am, which I'm super grateful for. Like the Cowboy Jacks District 64 gigs. I've done club gigs in, other countries, other states, other cities. And, it's always just a little bit like I have to like prove that I belong, which is totally fair. Like I definitely want to give the best environment to whoever's in that club at the time. But here, people like come support me, and they're like, we're going to an Oreo show. Like whatever he gives us, we're kind of going to be like rocking with it. Which is cool, where they just trust me enough to, really dig deep in terms of like where I'm finding my music.
Is your goal to take over Fargo?
I've had several people use the term Fargo famous already with me. So.
Sure.
But in terms of like taking it over, I guess I don't think that's like the right term I would personally use, because I feel like I'm more like a solo entrepreneur where like maybe a lot of DJs are like, hey, I want to have a massive team of DJs. And I more want to like be solo, but then support all the people around me and give them opportunities and create them, but not necessarily like be I don't know. Maybe I book or like I hire somebody that's like my accounting and my marketing, but like right now I'm doing all the accounting, all the marketing, all the emails and stuff like that. And like, they are not my favorite thing to do. So I don't really like want to increase that workload with a big staff of DJs. But if I can help them kind of like show them how they can do it on their own, I guess that is my biggest goal, is like to level up the community without necessarily like having to like pay everybody and, run the business for them, like teach everybody else kind of how to run things.
So to compare it to like a podcast, it's almost like having a podcast network where we have a bunch of podcasts underneath us, except for you're just trying to help them out, not be like their boss or something, kind of is what.
Yeah, exactly. And like
comparison.
create opportunities and like, hey, like this club is looking for somebody to kind of cover when I'm gone. Like, I feel like you'd be a good fit. How can I prepare you in the best way form? But like, they're going to pay you. I'm not going to pay you to like take my spot. I want people to like get those opportunities and take that challenge on their own.
That's awesome. I have two questions. One, what is your favorite like place to go when you DJ, like that you get most excited for and have the most fun, whether it's like a club or like a high school dance or a wedding? And then the second is, what genre of music? Like, do you like the rave? Like yourself, when you're bumping, are you liking the rave,
Definitely. It changes with time in terms of like both of the questions in terms of like what I'm liking at the moment. But like right now, it's super cold outside, and obviously like you can never throw a show outside. So like my biggest crave is like throwing an outdoor show right now would be super cool, like right in the heart of downtown Fargo at Fort Knox. Those shows are like so cool because I guess in a outdoor environment, there's just so much more space where like the club can be very confined, and you might, there might just be people everywhere. It seems like when you're in a club where like, in an outdoor environment, there's so much space to dance. I'm a big like dancer myself. Like I'm not like a great dancer per se, but you'll catch me at a festival and I just like to groove, and I don't like to be at the front of the crowd. I like to be at the very back where like the space is good. It sounds good still, but like I'm not being, there's not like 1,000 people trying to like rush to the front of the stage, I guess. One more time. What was the second question?
The second question was just what genre?
Genre. Yes. Oh, yeah. So I float around so much. It all depends on just like what I'm feeling in the moment. But I guess like I had a huge intro to like house music a few years ago, and there just wasn't much of that in Fargo. So I really enjoyed representing kind of like house music remixes. But recently, I feel like I've leveled up that where like I can get that to an even faster tempo, which is like techno hard style, which is like just really fast paced, hard hitting beats. That's like that'll get me in my groove where I just like, it's such an insane energy boost. And that's kind of like what I like to work out in the gym with, is just like really high energy stuff.
So in the intro, we mentioned you travel all across the world, not just a country. What are some of the countries that you've been able to travel to and perform at?
Yeah. So like just performing is just Australia. So those are where like I built a lot of my connections in terms of like, for some reason, Australia just like has a really large pool of people that like make edits and mashups just like I do. So that's kind of where like I grew those connections there. But in terms of traveling, I've traveled a lot over Asia. So I just went to Vietnam, Thailand. I've been to Bali, New Zealand, Fiji, a little bit in like Central America. So like Guatemala, Belize, Mexico.
Why? Why do you travel? Like, is it a vacation kind of a thing? Or are you just trying to see the whole world, or what's your motivation?
Or is it for DJing?
Yeah.
No, it's mostly just for like seeing the world. I've always felt that like traveling outside of your home country is like so informative in like so many ways that you just like, you open your mind to such a different style of living. And you see that like there's so many people that have way less than us in America. And for some reason they are happier. And it's just like sometimes like the constant obsessive way of our life in America of like always obsessing over like what's the new and top thing and always like competing. Like it's almost like social media is like a competition and everybody is like competing of like who has the most fun and best life. Where like when you go to Thailand, Vietnam, you realize like they don't even like pay attention to social media. Like yeah, most of them have phones, but it's not a big part of their life. They just like go about life and they're so much more family oriented and like appreciate every moment that they have. And that's really resonated with me, I guess, a little bit about, my early life is, my dad was in a band growing up, but then he was diagnosed with cancer and eventually passed away when I was about 8 years old. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no worries at all. I mean, like I've definitely grown as a person, and it's definitely something like I like to kind of bring up because I feel like it really helped, push me as a person moving forward of like seeing how my dad approached his life towards the end of like just appreciating every moment he had. Music was always like such a answer and like thing that brought him love and community in his life. And, that I kind of live on his dream and try to live on his like sort of presence in the way he lived his life is just appreciating every moment. So me traveling, I guess like I see a lot of that in other cultures and I really appreciate it even when they have no idea that there's like cars that drive themselves when like we already have like Ubers in some cities that are like you can get an Uber with a car that drives you around and nobody's driving the car.
Yeah.
There's just people around the world that don't even see that side of the world, but they are like so happy with just what they have. So it makes me really appreciative of what I have and I try to spread that positive energy. That's why I love these hats. I really do. Because I'm all about spreading positive energy and pushing that to my community and everywhere I go around the world. And I think the more people I meet around the world too, they kind of see that like I've, I guess, seen a bunch of that positive energy.
What advice would you have for like a high school student or somebody that wants to do something similar to what you do?
Yeah, I think it's truly like start off by like just not caring what other people think about you around you. Like obviously like my mom in particular, like I got told every single day that like DJing is not a full-time job unless you're like the biggest DJ in the world. So obviously I heard that. I took it as sort of motivation instead of like, okay, just because she said I can't means I can't. No, I said no, I'm gonna prove you wrong. And like, I love my mom and she's been super supportive throughout the years, but she's just like a realist person. So, take every sort of criticism and like listen to it, use it as motivation, but don't let that ever stop you from chasing what you love and your dreams. And if you have, every sort of artist can have their own avenue and chase that in a sort of different way. And like I chase like edit making mashups, but like if you are someone that like loves to create and produce music, like you can have a completely different path, but find so much success in so many different ways. So I think it's more about like appreciating the journey and, not letting anybody kind of like tear you down from your personal experience and journey. Like just keep going, I guess is like, I've just never stopped. I've just always been consistent in what I've done. And even though there's times where like I mentioned, like I travel, I go on vacation, but like in the back of my mind on vacation is always like, okay, like what are my goals moving forward? Prioritizing my health, making sure that like I'm still continuing to focus in on the music, even when I'm 8,000, 9,000 miles away. It's all about just, staying consistent.
Awesome.
Well, we've done, before you say your piece, we've done 25 episodes roughly, and pretty much all of them have said in their advice, don't care what other people think and just put your nose down and grind and be consistent. And so that's just something to think about for everybody listening. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good. Well, we just want to thank you for coming on. This was awesome, allowing us to be able to come into your house and record a podcast with you. I can tell that you're not just a DJ. You know, like you go out and you actually care about the crowd. You care about the wedding venue. You care about the
Safety.
the bride and the groom. Yeah, you care about safety. And then you try and tailor the music to fit their needs. And that's great. You know, it's not like I'm just hiring a DJ, paying them out, and then calling it good. You actually care about the audience and you want to attract them and keep them. And it seems too, and we've heard this from other people, that you do have your own DJ Oreo crowd. Like people show up to see you. So that is awesome. And thank you for letting us do this.
And we hope for continued success.
Thank you
for
so
you.
much. Thanks for having me on Beyond the Spotlight. I appreciate you guys digging a little bit deeper.
And also, sorry, finish what you're saying. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I love all the decor on the wall.
Thank you.
You guys can't see all of it, but like kids with Mac Miller back there.
Oh, yeah.
And Oreo says go, like all your own
R.I.P.
stuff.
And
Yeah,
he mentioned
R.I.P.
that
Mac
every
Miller.
single one had a meaning to it too. So that's kind of interesting.
We might have to ask him after the pod.
Yeah.
but,
Yeah. I mean, I dig deep in terms of like hip hop was an early thing in terms of how I got started into music. And I just developed into such a huge atmosphere of music where I just get to share it and, you know, create it for the community now, which is really cool.
Awesome. Well, one thing we do at the end of our show is we're sponsored by Giant Snacks. So you can take one of these seeds, whichever one you want.
I love dill pickle.
Dill pickle.
Thank
Hell
you.
yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Giants.
Let's
Thank
go.
you, Brush Marks. Go buy some Smile Like You Mean It hats if you want. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys. Yes, sir. We'll see you guys next week on Monday at 6 p.m.
Peace.
Peace.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Real ones with me, I know we gon' beat the odds. Counterfeit, guess it from the thought of it. People fake, think they need to start a kid.